The Michael Berry Show.
I believe, whatever you may think of what Elon has said, I believe that Elon came into this process with a pure heart. I think this was the dad who agreed to coach the team because they didn't have one. And it's important that the kids play a competitive sport and that team not get dropped. So he took on the role. I think he came in with the intention of doing very good things. And now, separate and aside, I think he got a real kick out of the star power of hanging out with Donald Trump. That's not to say Elon was not a star, but there's nothing like Trump world. And I think he enjoyed bringing his kid, throwing him on his shoulders, strolling around. I think he enjoyed how he was being interviewed with a different degree of gravitas. It was just a different way he was talked to. He was discussed as being a very powerful man. And in the political world, in America, you don't overnight attain that role. If you run for office, by the time you get it, they've taken a few pounds of flesh. He was, flip the switch, he was there. He was being allowed to run roughshod over anybody that got in his way. And that's a power you don't get. That's the great frustration of politics. And he got such great response from most Americans as to what Doge was doing. Now, I do believe they were death threats. And that is, I will tell you, that is unnerving. And it's something that he hadn't experienced before. And there was a toll taken. I'm sure he was getting complaints from within the investor relations groups of his companies. Sure. I'm sure he had longtime friends who were saying, "What are you doing? Trump's a monster. How are you help?" But I think by and large, it was a very positive experience. And I think he expected that the first budget bill that came out was going to have his fingerprints on it, and that was going to be his swan song, and it was going to be glorious. And then it wasn't. And I think that frustrated him. I do. And I think in almost a naive way, this was his coming to grips with the fact that the level of change you hope to bring is probably not going to happen. And there's a certain part of you that dies at that moment. A certain part of the innocence and optimism and hope, because if Trump's first bill, when he's more popular than he's ever been, the Democrats are discredited, and you've had this opportunity, and you have exposed waste on a level Americans had never seen, you still can't get what you hoped to see in the bill. I think that's devastating. And I think he thought, I want a better bill, and I'm willing to lay every bit of political capital I have developed into getting a better bill. And that's not how Trump plays. Trump does love him, hate him, or wherever in between. Trump's a brawler. He went after Thomas Massey. He got kind of rough with Rand Paul last week. He does not like to be questioned and criticized. And that's not a judgment, that's a fact. And that's a big part of his success. It's a big part of his success. Because many people hold their tongue. There were a lot of Republicans who held their tongue and voted for that in the House when they didn't want to, or when they wanted more, or maybe a little further right, and that was not what they had intended. I think there was a lot of that going on. However, they did not want to be the one that he was targeting. So in that sense, this is the bully pulpit. And if you don't build it and maintain it, then you don't have a power to wield. Trump wields that power as the iron fist behind the velvet glove. And sometimes that glove has to come off and people have to be reminded, because every one of them has an ego. And that's what he does. He goes after Republicans much harder than he does Democrats, if you've noticed. He really makes it personal with Republicans as opposed to Democrats. And that is because he is also the leader of a party. There are things he needs their vote on. But I think that Elon came into this in the last, couple of weeks since he's, come out hard against this bill. I think he was careful to avoid criticizing Trump personally. I think he was careful to avoid creating a direct conflict. I think he thought he could operate outside the system and push this thing more toward a conservative, fiscally conservative bill. And I think Trump's way of getting him to lay off was to take a shot. And that's a very natural response for him. I don't think Trump is losing sleep over this conflict. The fact that Elon took a conciliatory tone last night tells me that he is. I think he's. I wouldn't be shocked if Elon kind of goes back to industry and gets out of this process, because he's not used to taking a punch. He's a smart guy. I have the utmost respect for his brains, his ability to effect things, to make things happen, to manifest, these visions. But I think this process has left him a little beaten up, and Trump will keep moving forward.
The Michael Berry Show.